All right. Thank you all for those of you able to join us, join me and Marisol tonight. Deceleration. You guys gotta go easy on us. My computer's maxed out right now. It's running a couple programs, trying to download an interview from a couple weeks ago that I've been hanging on to. It's going to be a lot of cool stuff, a lot of good people, a lot of good conversation. First up, I want to share some things from some recent events, some of the Black Lives Matter events, and some updates for folks. Make sure people know about and are able to attend. And then some video from from the weekend's caravan we were out on, and a projection with SA stands at the Bexar County Jail. That I really wanted to make sure as many people were able to see it as possible. I think there was one when Vision was out there shooting, and an interview with Camber Thompson from the Charles Roundtree Bloom Project, kind of an amazing woman here in San Antonio who the cousin of Charles Roundtree, and probably if you'd been out to some of the events around town, you've heard his name, as he was an 18-year-old young man a couple years ago, killed by the police. Believe it was here on the west side, when a cop just shot through a screen door, right, in an action that the chief of police defended at the time. So anyway, she's since launched this project that is really, really neat, and I hope to learn a lot more about it. We caught up with her, and so to get an introduction, where those children of incarcerated, parents, those who have been exposed here in San Antonio, as she had been raised on the west and the east side, in areas over-policed, over-incarcerated, burdened by environmental injustices as well, came to contact and connect with nature and found the healing power of that connection and being with the land. So it's a great interview. There's a Rights of Nature conversation following that Marisol Cortez, if you've been on our website, deceleration.com, you would have heard a bit of that already, and the Yanawana Herbolarios to close with Maria Turvin with an interview that dates back a few weeks, but I think is still good for folks. So that's just a little look ahead on this broadcast. There are some events that I wanted to share, Black Lives Matter, and the week ahead. So this one at the Columbus Park, Columbus statue, they brokered a deal anyway. I think it was Robert Trevino and the Italian Society to bring that statue in, to take it out and rename the park like Italian Plaza, Plaza Italiana or something like that, Piazza. But recognizing that the organizers of that have faced, I understand, threats to their own safety, to stand with them and declare that is not going to be tolerated. So there's a social justice caravan, and you can see the dates here. If you go to, again, deceleration.news, Marisol has curated a post there that you'll be able to catch up on all of this. We'll try to keep it current. If you know of events that are not on our list, just let us know. Write us through our Facebook page, right? And or editor at deceleration.news, I think it is, and we'll definitely add that in. So the first clip that I wanted to share, hopefully I'm not skipping over something critical, like I said. No matter how much preparation goes into a broadcast like this, I'm always caught by something at the last minute. And so there was a few things that I wanted to share, and I'm going to have to come up on the other side of this first, some of these videos related to, if you know someone in the DACA program, you may want to share this information. It's going to be deeper in the program, where they're having the Immigrant Legal Resource Center is sponsoring a mental health phone-in, I guess. So, I mean, just the turbulence of being undocumented and kind of being thrust into the limelight right now, and Trump vowing to find a way through this Supreme Court decision to evict these folks from among our community. It's a lot, right? And so anyway, that's something I want to pass that on. I saw that. I just got that email like a couple hours ago, so I do want to share that, a DACA mental health call-in. And so let me put on. So this was a BLM caravan. I can't actually remember. Somebody's going to get after me on this, the sponsor for this, but Marisol and myself went out. We met a lot of folks there at, I think it was Freeman Coliseum, and then drove through the center city, and just had a few conversations and caught a few speakers. So I wanted to make sure to share that if you were unable to be there.
I am Royalty from Levitated Minds Entertainment. We came out today because I've seen everything. Me, myself, I am a product of systematic racism since birth. Since birth, it's been nothing but anger that I had to learn how to get over. So to this day, I remember back in 2013, I was chased down, beat, tased, and tackled by officers because of the color of my skin, because I matched a description. A description in a city full of millions of people that have dark skin or brown skin. Mm-hmm. So I feel there needs to be a change today. There needs to be something that's fixed.
Lack of police accountability is disturbing, to say the least.
How long have you lived in San Antonio?
Well, actually I grew up here and was gone for about 30 years, and then I moved back. So
did you
I've
notice
been back for about 12, maybe 13 years now.
Anything changed?
Nothing systemic.
Yeah.
I mean, surface changes, but we still have the economic divide and corrupt police department that, you know, no, not really. It's a big, huge problem. It's both economic and justice system, and reforming the police department is just one small part of the picture. You know, no justice, no peace.
I feel like it's important, especially right now, all the injustice going on. Yeah, I just came to support. And of course, Black Lives Matter.
We want to really give a good example to our children, basically to show them that whenever we see those type of systematic injustices manifesting themselves in our society, we just can't sit back everything be like business as usual. We really have to do something about it as much as we possibly can.
Black men, we have black children, and we want them to know what their rights are in this world. We don't want them to run around here scared.
One of the reasons we are here is in memoriam of the fathers' lives that have been stolen from their children by the police. So I just wanted to take a moment to say a few names. Rest in power, Jesse Aguirre. Rest in power, George Floyd. Rest in power, Anthony Scott. And so many lives. Too many dads have been stolen from their families for no reason besides the color of skin. This is a civil rights movement, y'all. This is not just about police brutality. We are taking on systemic racism. And I think that's important to remember as you fight. This is going to be a marathon. We're taking on the system. Racism has been built into the foundations of this society, within our laws. Even after the 13th Amendment, somewhat gave freedom, it abolished slavery in most forms. We still aren't free to this day. We still face segregation. We face economic oppression. We face police brutality. We are not given a fair chance, right? Black and brown people are more likely to have their interest rates be denied on loans. They're forced into ghettos. We've had medical experiments performed on us without our knowledge. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment, black people thought that they were getting vaccinations, but they were actually infecting them with syphilis. That's the history of black people, brown people, indigenous people, Asian lives. It's a system of oppression, and we are saying that enough is enough. So thank you guys so much for being here. I do want to talk about some of the intersectionality of this movement. It's important that we keep this visibility up. It's important that we're on the streets, that we're protesting, that we're doing car parades. But it is also important that we are contacting our legislators. This is multifaceted, right? You need to be registered to vote so we can vote the right people in and the wrong people out. Okay, voting's important, but you guys need to contact your legislators, right? We need to talk to city council. You need to talk to your county commissioners. They're the ones that go over the sheriff's deputies' collective bargaining agreement. They're the ones that set our policing budget, our public safety budget. They decide where these funds go, and they need to hear from you, because the only ones they're hearing from right now are not us. They don't represent the majority of San Antonio. So I need you to write these op-eds, these letters to the editor. I need you to send these emails. I need you to show up to these virtual meetings and make public comment. SAISD, San Antonio Independent School District, recently said they intend to keep cops in their schools. We know there's plenty of studies out there that policing our schools has negative effects on those of us that are most marginalized. Not just black and brown kids, but LGBTQI kids. They face discrimination, they face abuse out in the regular world, and now they have it in their school. We've seen it time and time again. Videos of students being slammed on the ground out of their desks. 12-year-olds in handcuffs. It's time to get the police out of our schools and replace them with counselors, mental health specialists, social workers. I want you guys to look up the website fixsapd.org and learn about local government codes 143 and 174. That's what's tying our hands. 143 is the arbitration process that allows these cops to be hired back time and time and time again. It's what allows potential cadets to fail their polygraph tests and their psych exams and retake them to get back into cadet school. Well, if you're too nervous to take a polygraph test and pass it, then you're too nervous to have a gun and be walking our streets. You're too nervous to have a gun in our schools where our kids are. So we need to repeal 143, and that's up to us. We collect petition signatures. We're going to have the petition up soon. We get it on the ballot, and we vote to repeal it in May. 174 is what ties our hands on our collective bargaining negotiations. And our public safety budget for the city of San Antonio, only 18% is wiggle room that we get to decide on. Only 18% is not locked into this collective bargaining agreement. That means that they control 82% of the budget, and don't care what we say. They don't care about our concerns, what we say we need. They dictate 82% of it. So we need to repeal that. So the website is fixsapd.org. Sign up so you can know when the petition's going and how to help us get these petition signatures, y'all. Thank you guys so much for being here. Happy Father's Day. Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
There's so much going on, I know, in San Antonio, around the country, around the world right now, in the fight to dismantle white supremacy. And we're honored to see so many brave folks out in the streets here, and just wanted to share those bits that we're able to catch here. I know Marisol, she's been out a few times delivering supplies. We've hit just a couple of events to respect our own needs of our own families, and this, broadcast is, our way of, of contributing. Another something that I was really proud of to see in San Antonio were folks who walked up to the Bexar County Jail at night with a projector. It's called the Defund Hate Action, and God, I would love to see that every night of the week. I just shared a quick video. I'm just going to roll that and maybe voice over. I don't know. I guess it's going to let me talk. So this is to recognize that the breeding grounds, right, for COVID-19 right now is in places of density, right, population densities, and that's in our jails, it's in our detention centers, and it's the reason our kids aren't in school, right? But they're planning this fall trip back, and no one's quite sure what that's going to look like. But here at the Bexar County Jail, you'll see folks increasingly come up into the windows and are waving. And I'm sure desperate inside, understanding that COVID-19 is circulating, and they're just packed on top of each other. That immigrants, black and brown folks, poor white folks, are just in there in the middle of this pandemic. And so this was an action to defund law enforcement, as one of the organizers shared with me, and make sure people understand that our community is still being complicit with ICE and this ramp up and war on immigrants under this administration. So anyway, just beautiful images from San Antonio that I hope y'all are able to share somewhere. And SA Stands led that action. Going forward, I know if folks are interested in breaking this down in terms of defunding SAPD, and some looking at reforming SAPD, what was that, the link, Fix SAPD, understanding what's funding SAPD, and not a lot of folks are making this a direct connection here, but CPS Energy, your utility bills, the profit that the utility is making on selling power outside of San Antonio and on you and me, is a third, I believe, third roughly of the San Antonio's operating budget, and that majority of the operating budget is police and fire. Monday, the Board of Trustees for CPS Energy is meeting. Folks are interested in speaking at that meeting. Just send me a message. I can get you the details if you're unable to find it online. And one of the things that I've been working on is to make sure folks are aware of the potential within a city-owned utility we could totally transform that place. And historically, it's been kind of like a castle, right? Impenetrable by charter. It separates out like what council and what people are able to do to influence, what kind of power, we're getting, what's turning on our lights. It's kind of like none of your concern, right? Is the way that they've managed that utility for a long time. So anyway, as they come up on a vote regarding it, kind of obscure flex step, Safer Tomorrow Energy Program, a program that's basically offset the amount of power that of a full new power plant, right? So these plants that we get into, like the $1 billion Spruce 2, that we end up paying off over decades, that era is over, and we're hoping we can inspire them, force them, move them to invest even more in energy conservation, specifically money into our communities, weatherize homes, fix roofs, foundations, whatever it takes, and make sure that these bills, when people are afraid to turn on their electricity because their apartment is so leaky, they're getting $300, $400 bills, those need to be fixed. Those property owners need to be held accountable and responsible for the safety of their residents, and our city and you and I are responsible as well. So Kiamber here, I mentioned at the top of the show, I was so excited to visit. Okay, Wolfie's in the house. He's been moving around. Actually, I wanted to, careful baby, don't touch that. Yeah. So Kiamber here, yeah, there's a lag.
Oh, there's a lag.
Yeah, okay, so, all right, Wolfie's exploring all of the lights in the broadcast room right now. And actually, when I was getting ready for this, found a cable and used that cable to actually pick the lock on the room. So at a year and so many months, he's got skills. He's going to be a danger, y'all, so look out. Back to Kiamber. So Kiamber Thompson, the Charles Roundtree Bloom project, just so excited to see this picking up. So it just launched last year, and she's going to describe it for y'all. All right, check it out. People are marching all around the world right now, as you know, with a call in the systemic racism and white supremacy that's not just here in the U.S., but in you know, it seems to be everywhere. Here, there's a more specific message to ending police violence that has long targeted Black communities. And I know you yourself suffered a huge loss a couple years ago when SAPD killed your cousin. And I'm wondering if you could tell us just a little bit about him.
Yeah, so my cousin, Charles Roundtree, who we call Chop or Chop Chop, to me, I grew up with him more so when he was a younger kid, so like elementary age, and he was just a goofy, silly kid, a lot of joy, very, very present. I think that's something that I think reflecting back, just like remembering to be present in that kind of high-spirited, joyful, playful energy. And so, I was a few years older than him. So honestly, he was one of my, he was like a baby to me, one of my babies. And I have a lot of younger cousins. I'm the oldest of like 35 grandchildren on my mom's side. So all of these kids who are in my life are my babies, are like siblings to me. So when I found out that he was killed by SAPD, it was like one of my worst fears come true, honestly. It's a very tragic situation, and he was only 18.
How would you say his memory kind of inspired or shaped the Bloom Project? Can you talk a little bit about what the Charles Roundtree Bloom Project does and how that honors his memory?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, when I was coming up with the idea for Bloom Project, this was in 2018 in the fall, and I was actually in DC. I was living in DC, but I was planning to move back to San Antonio to do something, and I knew I wanted to do something working with youth who've had incarcerated parents who've been impacted by policing and incarceration in ways that I have growing up. And so was ideating and started to put this idea down on paper for the Bloom Project. And literally about a month later, that's when I found out about my cousin, Chop. And and that just gave me more reason to create this program and why a program like this needs to exist. Chop, he also had parents in and out of jail, and was into this foster care system, and until the day that he died, his father was incarcerated. So I named the Bloom Project in honor of him. And 2019, 2020, this has been our first year running. I moved back to San Antonio in September of 2019 and then launched the program in November. And the Bloom Project, just to give you the short description of it, but I'll go more into detail, is an outdoor healing justice program. So the healing justice is the framework in which it operates from. And the whole goal of the program is to create a space of communal healing for youth who've had incarcerated parents through engaging in nature-based activities. And I'm facilitating, and the folks who are supporting this work are facilitating these activities, but the time that is spent reconnecting with the land and engaging with nature, that's nature's doing that healing work, as well as these conversations, these really intentional conversations that we're having. And I think that Bloom Project captures Chop's memory because we really do center Black joy in this work. And students who've been involved in the Bloom Project have also been family members. And I've heard comments from them, some of Chop's siblings and cousins closer to his age who would be like, if Chop was here, he'd be up on that right now. And so I think that energy of lightness and playfulness and fun that we get to have in that space is definitely captures his memory. Did you all want me to talk any more about more specifics with some of the things that we've done?
Yeah, for sure. You're welcome to.
So this year, we had about 22 youth, middle and high school students, and we've been lucky to receive so much support from San Antonio and partnering with community organizations like Southwest Workers Union, Gardopia Gardens, organizations like that who have allowed us to use their space to do some of our programming. So a good chunk of it has been at community gardens and reconnecting with the land in that way, and learning about soil and plants, and also doing things like yoga and meditative, different meditative practices, such as doing observations and drawings of plants, and as well as doing actual meditations or meditative hikes. So that's a lot of what we do. And then I think a really important piece to highlight of what we do is at the beginning and end of each session, we have a healing or talking circle. And so that's just a space for all of us to check in. It might be reflecting on, usually if it's at the end, it is more reflective on what we did or learned that day. But yeah, also a space for processing some of those police and incarceration related traumas that are really relevant to these youth and some of their experiences as well. And yeah, so that's kind of what we've been doing.
Yeah, and I know on the Charles Roundtree Bloom Project website, I mean, you talk about growing up on the west, I believe it's the west side and the east side, but in all these areas where it's, I think the quote was over-policed, over-incarcerated, and overburdened with environmental inequity. I'm wondering, but it sounds also like you had to get out of San Antonio, off to college or Pomona to experience your own transformative healing. Through encounter. It sounds like the encounter with nature. I'm wondering if you can just describe maybe a little bit your own personal engagement and how that led you into this work.
Yeah. So I moved to California in 2014, and when I was applying to college, I didn't apply to any. I didn't want to go to school in Texas. I wanted to get as far away as possible, and that was really a lot because of the various kind of traumatic experiences that I had growing up. And I think I didn't yet have like an understanding of at the systemic level of why things were the way they were, but I think just seeing these systems and cycles of poverty and incarceration and just a lot of folks being stuck, I really wanted to move and do something different. When I did that, Pomona College is the college I went to, and one, California is just a beautiful, beautiful place to live in. But also the college had an orientation, an outdoor orientation where all the first year students went on various outdoor trips to places like Yosemite and Big Bear, ski, kayak, hiking, camping, various options. And that experience was really my first time tent camping for a week, my first time kayaking. We also, on my particular experience, we had stayed on Chumash Reservation and did some native plantings and connected and learned from them. And I think that experience, which was right at the start of my college experience, was so important to me and really, I think, shifted what I wanted to do in college and thereafter. And so, yeah, I had these really, like you said, transformative and healing experiences that I didn't expect going into college or doing any of those outdoor trips. I didn't grow up like kayaking or hiking or doing that. And so it was very new. And I think what it did for me was provide a space of solace, as well as kind of expand my vision for myself and for my community of what was possible. And so I really wanted to bring that and my experiences with nature back to San Antonio and to youth who who are impacted by the same systems, because I think, this is a really personal project, and when I was creating it, it was something that I feel like I could have benefited from as a kid, and I think the earlier that we can raise critical consciousness, and the earlier that we could do this type of healing work, the better. Because when I went to college, I realized that there was so much repressed trauma that I didn't even realize. I just never had the space to process these experiences that I had.
So do you think that this work, that it has to be, that nature like has that kind of certain power to it, or is it, because there's after school programs and all kinds of like development projects and programs. What is it about engaging young people with nature, do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think there are so many different ways to do healing work. There's talking therapy. There's, like you said, other types of after school or out of school programs for youth that are out there. I think nature is one avenue for that, and I think it's a really important one, though, especially for young Black and Brown and Indigenous youth who have been intentionally stripped from their connection to their environment and to the land in various ways. And so I think by centering this around reconnecting with nature and learning more about the local environment that we exist in, I think that process deepens our connection to this place that we call home. But I think it also is just very, very powerful to reconnect to a legacy and tradition that we and our ancestors were torn away from.
One of the things, kind of made relatedly, I've been thinking a lot about sort of the connections between the violence of the prison industrial complex, the violence of environmental racism and climate change, and the violence of sort of public health crisis, the pandemic that we're living in, and the impacts of that pandemic on Black and brown communities in particular. And it struck me recently that I can't breathe is a common cry, like in all of those struggles, right? I wonder if you have any thoughts about those connections, or any thoughts about kind of like how something like the breath, right? Something that's so basic to being alive, so basic to being human, can become the site of resistance. Just the demand for the right to breathe, free of constriction by the police, free of illness, free of pollution. Can you maybe talk about some of those connections?
Yeah, I think I Can't Breathe, that calling has become, I think, a perfect, or sorry, retract that. But I think that calling has really highlighted the connection, like you said, between police violence and environmental injustice. And yeah, our slogan for the Bloom Project is creating spaces where we can breathe. And I mean that both in the literal sense, by increasing access to green space, which youth of color, low-income youth often don't have as much access to. And there's countless studies out there that talk about the health benefits and the mental and physical health benefits of being in green space or proximity to green space. So in that sense, and also in the more figurative sense of just creating spaces where we can exist more freely and without being policed. That's really important to how we do programming. And yeah, I mean, so many Black youth, grow up with asthma, including myself, and that speaks to the environmental injustices as well. And then at the same time, we live in these communities that are really heavily policed. And yeah, it is, I think, the breath and does become, like you said, a site of resistance. Just a couple weeks ago, actually, with Bloom Project, we've been trying to be responsive to our youth with the pandemic and with the Black uprisings that we're seeing around the world. And so we'd initially canceled in-person programming in the spring. We ended around mid-March, but we've been trying to still be responsive now. And one of the things that we were able to do 2 weeks ago was get together, and we started in a circle and did some breathing and acknowledged that, especially right now, but always our breath is an act of resistance, because, we have these different forces and systems that are constricting or trying to prevent our breath. And so, yeah, we very much resonate, with what you shared. And yes, it is all connected.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that we will want to kind of check in with you if there's an opportunity in the future, in the field, or somehow integrate with the work you're doing in a way that makes sense. It's a really exciting project, it sounds like. We just want to offer support, and starting with this broadcast, but I will flash up like the URL and encourage folks to go check out the website. And how at this time particularly, but going forward, how can folks best support your work?
I think one important way, always, donations are one way. So You can donate through our website, sierrabloomproject.org/donate. And right now, these donations are not only to help support the programming that we do, but also trying to grow capacity to be able to deepen our impact and grow this work in San Antonio. So, any donation amount is support is helpful, and just ultimately allows us to deepen that impact in our community. But in addition to donating, raising awareness is always useful to potentially gain more supporters, followers, potential donors, collaborators, etc. So if folks have small businesses, or we've done various partnerships and collaborations with folks who are helping us spread awareness or raise funds. So that's always welcome. And then I think the last two ways to support right now, we accept donations of items as well, like whether it's like outdoor gear, like tents or backpacks, stuff like that, or even just like supplies, like art supplies. That's important in what we do as well. And then if folks want to donate their time, skills, energy, talent, that's also welcome.
Stay well. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy.
Yes, take care.
Okay.
Bye, Marisol. Bye, Craig.
Thank you.
All right. If anybody needs to dial back on that, take a photo of those QR codes, and a lot of the smartphones will identify that and just link you over to the website, the Charles Roundtree website, the Instagram page, to stay connected there. I was pretty enthusiastic about this next conversation, in that Marisol and I have been talking about and thinking about and writing about from time to time this concept of the rights of nature. It's enshrined in the Ecuadorian Constitution, in that it's not this idea in the legal system, right? Is that people are the only possessor of rights, right? In law, and to the extent that land has rights, land rights, it's about who owns the land. And so Marisol had an interesting conversation with the senior legal counsel for the Center for Democratic and Environmental Rights, Thomas Lindsay, who assisted the Ecuadorian government on that, as well as two local organizers, Lauren Munoz and Liam McMillan. And some folks, if you follow Deceleration, you've been on our website or our podcast, iTunes or Stitcher, what have you, you probably heard the full conversation. If you haven't heard this, and this is something that speaks to you, that you're curious about and like to connect with more, I know that the local organizer Lauren and Liam would love to present or work with whoever, right, that expresses an interest here. So this is just a 10-minute excerpt from that. You can find, like I said, the full podcast, the full audio interview on our website, with a good analysis by Marisol, and because she always does that. So check it out. Our first thumbs up, or maybe our second. Yes, Marisol always does that.
I'd really like to talk about just, for somebody who's totally unfamiliar with the concept of the rights of nature, can y'all explain what that means and where it comes from, and how that approach differs from other legal or philosophical bases for environmental protection?
So the rights of nature concept is an easy one. It's about legally enforceable rights akin to human rights for ecosystems. So think forests, rivers, oceans as having some kind of legally defensible rights. So essentially elevating the protection of ecosystems and nature to the highest level possible under a Western system of law. So that's the concept. It's an easy concept to understand. it's very complex in how it's actually implemented, because we live in a system which favors in some ways property and commerce as certain concepts in our system of law. And that's how the structure of law is built, or that's what the structure of law is built around, whether it's a constitutional structure of law or the statutory structure of law. And so this concept of nature having rights kind of runs contrary to some of that, because today under a Western system of law in the US, if you own a piece of property, you have a deed to an acre piece of land, that deed carries with it the legal authority to destroy that 10-acre piece of land, the ecosystems on a 10-acre piece of land. If you want to put in a landing strip for your private helicopter, you can do so. There's nothing in the law that stops you. And so in essence, we've had a system of environmental law in this country that's been based on trying to restrict those property rights. And so environmental law has been subordinate to those property and commerce concepts within the law. So while it's a simple concept to wrap our heads around, ecosystem rights, because of course, in our system of law, corporations have rights. And corporations are not people. At least they, corporation itself can't get up and walk around and go to a restaurant and vote and do those types of things. But for some reason, ecosystems and nature upon which we depend for our own survival, as well as all life on the planet, don't have any recognized rights. And instead, we've tried to protect it through doing other things that fall short of that rights recognition. And so when we give talks, we talk about nature status today, ecosystem status today, like the San Antonio River, for example, stands in the same place as women in the 1840s, that women were property of their husband or property of their older brother, but they were property under the law, not rights-bearing people. Or African Americans, slaves in the 1840s, who were not persons, did not have rights, and only had certain protections derivative through slave owners, so the people actually owned them. And so I don't think anybody would argue that that kind of legal system is appropriate for today. And in fact, we argue, and the communities we work with assert, that the system of law that we have today basically treats nature as not a right-bearing entity, but as a piece of property under the law. And the rights of nature concept to shift ecosystems and nature from just being treated as a non-person or as a thing to being treated as something with legally enforceable rights, which in turn frees up people who care about ecosystems and nature to actually have more leeway to protect those ecosystems and nature in a time when overall degradation and destruction of nature and ecosystems is at an all-time high. So it's kind of a crisis moment. Crisis moments produce big transformative paradigm shifts. Rights of nature, I think, is one of those paradigm shifts that's long overdue.
Mm-hmm. So you brought up Florida, and it made me think about Texas here. How would that approach work in a place like Texas, where we've seen time and time again, anytime we try to pass something on the local level, whether it's fracking within city limits, whether it's plastic bag bans, whether it's paid sick time, it's just struck down by the Texas legislature or by the courts here. In Texas in particular, we're sort of blessed, I guess, with this state government that professes to champion limited government, professes to champion local control, unless it threatens the interests of big business, and specifically the oil and gas industry. So what are the strategies that have worked to get around that reality that we're living in places like Texas and Florida?
Yeah, so Texas is really no different than the rest of the country, which is, you put your finger on it, which is that local lawmaking, when you're passing local laws to require people to mow down their noxious weeds every couple weeks, nobody cares. I mean, it's nobody cares from a power standpoint. Mm-hmm. Nobody comes in and says, you don't have the power to do that, you don't have the authority to do that. But when a community moves forward to ban fracking, or moves forward to stop a pipeline, or moves forward to do something else in this decision-making prerogative stuff that's been reserved to certain corporate entities under the law, you have a frenzy of activity. And that frenzy of activity over the last 100 years has really produced a series of legal doctrines that stop municipalities and people within those cities, towns, villages, and counties from moving forward to actually stop projects that are harmful to them. And so we don't need to get into details, but one is preemption. So the one legal doctrine is preemption. The state steps in, passes an oil and gas act, for example, that says you shall allow fracking within your community and you have no power to say no to it. And there's also this stupid little rule called Dillon's rule, which was a product of the railroad corporations as they were moving west to try to clear municipal governments out of the way from obstructing that movement of freight and railroads to the west. It's called Dillon's rule. And Dillon's rule says that if the state has not given your municipality the power to legislate in a certain area, you automatically don't have it. So preemption is one where they've spoken and said, you don't have it. Dillon's rule says, in the default, if the legislature hasn't specifically authorized you to do something, you can't do it. And then there are the doctrines of corporate rights. Corporations have constitutional rights in the United States. So whereas nature doesn't, ecosystems don't at this point, corporations do. How does that affect things? Well, if a corporation has a permit to put a frack well into your community, state or federal permit, it's generally recognized that if the municipality, the community, the city, town, village, or county moves forward to interfere with that activity that's controlled by the permit, that the corporation can sue you. That the corporation can sue your city, saying that you lack the authority to do what you've done, and you're interfering with the corporation's property rights under the law, because the permit itself, even though it's a piece of paper, is a piece of property. And if you interfere with the ability or right of the corporation to extract resources within the community, you owe them money in the amount of the resource that they can extract. That's how the law is set up. The default is that the corporation has the right if they hold the permit. So long story longer is that the law has been very carefully constructed for the past 150 years to stop people from doing anything real within the communities where they live. And so this isn't just about rights of nature. It's about democratic authority to control the future of your own community. And we've spent 20 years rolling out a legal argument that's based on a constitutional right of local community self-government, that people have the right to govern their own communities when they pass laws of a certain nature. And the certain nature that we argue about is when municipalities expand civil, political, and environmental rights. See, we're used to the federal government having a Bill of Rights. We're used to the state government. Texas has a Declaration of Rights, a Bill of Rights in their state constitution. We're not used to thinking about municipalities having the ability to adopt rights-creating mechanisms or to create their own Bill of Rights. So what if San Antonio, city of San Antonio, had a Bill of Rights? What might it look like? Could it have rights of nature in it, that ecosystems within the city of San Antonio have certain rights? Absolutely. Are you going to run up against a system of law that says you can't do it? Yes, you are. That's just fact. How do you get through it? Well, you create new jurisprudence. You have to create new either judge-made law, or in other places, people have given up on the courts and are moving towards changing their own constitutions, their state constitutions, to recognize a right of local community self-government. But one way or the other, these strands of thought are combined in one fabric. The rights of nature is dependent upon enlarging the portal of municipal authority so that cities, towns, villages, and counties and people within them can actually enlarge that portal far enough to actually get these rights expanding laws into place. That's the key. So it's a democratic movement. It's not just an environmental movement. It's really a revolt by people who are revolting to say this structure of government's not working for us anymore and we need a different one.
I'd really like to talk about just, for somebody who...
So, it's pretty basic, right? That it's not just our rights, right? That the Earth, Mother Earth, has rights with or without us here to exist and to grow and develop. And we have the right and the opportunity to defend the rights of all of these others, all of our other relatives, related beings of the earth. And so it's exciting to see the Center for Democratic and Environmental Rights at work in San Antonio. And I look forward to seeing what they can bring. And so I've also been holding the following interview with a friend of mine over at Yanawana Herbolarios, Maria Turvin. Maybe 4 weeks now. We haven't broadcast in a while, and I know that we missed maybe the last 2 broadcasts. We had some problems with that video, and I think I have it together now. But the message here, I think, is pretty stark and pretty simple, in that that we part of our work as activists, part of our work as folks who care for the earth, is to care for one another as an expression of the earth as well as nature, recognizing and being with other nature. And so Maria and the Herbolarios, as I know them, which is limited, are speaking into this space of traditional medicine and restoration, this idea of restoring our relationship to the land in the same way that Charles Roundtree Bloom Project is, in the same way that this legal initiative is. And so it's amazing to see all the different points of that compass, I guess, looking inward, looking to the center, looking to the heart. And so anyway, I'm excited to be able to share this interview with Maria at last. It's going to be somewhat dated, and I'm missing some of the relevant, slides and things like that that I had initially, put together. I was like, production quality up here with some really good links and the rest. But I want to move it forward now that I have it available. And for everybody who spent time with us putting together our 13th episode, just a lot of respect and a lot of gratitude, and I'm just hoping y'all, as well as everybody else out there, those of you who are working to expand rights in every direction and dismantle forces of oppression, be it kind of like our own racist patterns, practices, behaviors, institutional structures, or our oppression and destruction of a planet that in order to survive, we know leads, a small thing, but half of the land and half of the waters must remain wild for the life-sustaining functions of the planet to continue. But to flip that, we think about life-sustaining for ourselves has its own inherent rights. Over the billions of years that the Earth has been heating and cooling and blooming, right? And folding backwards. Hey, baby. I'll shut up and just play this video. Wolfie's back. I think he picked the lock again.
and stuff like that. We're staying healthy ourselves by,
Okay,
laughing
I'm backing up.
a lot.
I'm backing up.
So just tell
There
me,
we go.
Maria, how you are,
Hard stuff.
how you're staying safe yourself, and if there's ways that people in the community can respond to any needs that you may have.
So we're good, busy. We pretty much right now, Heidi and I are working 6 days a week, 12 to 14 hours, making medicine and stuff like that. We're staying healthy ourselves by, laughing a lot.
Yeah.
And by eating really well and by taking our own formulas. We monitor our health daily. We monitor our temperature, and we're both super in tune with our bodies. So we're kind of like, well, how do I feel today? We're constantly just being very aware of our wellness and how we feel. And so we were doing regular, lung support, immune support, lymphatic support, gargling with salt water, which honestly is such an easy thing for people to do, but really truly has proven respiratory benefits. Washing our hands a lot, just all of the things that really people should be doing, anyway, to keep themselves healthy and well, whether there's a pandemic going on or not, are the things that we're doing. And and then for the most part, unless we've got to do runs for materials, we're at the apothecary working and really try and limit interaction with the public right now on a physical basis, just to show people, okay, like, this is how you do set, we're trying to set an example for social distancing, right, and for proper hygiene, and to also, because we serve really vulnerable community, so we want to keep them safe. So like when we're doing our sick deliveries and that kinds of thing, we put the deliveries on their porch or on their doorstep, and then communicate with them by phone, and make sure that they understand everything and that kind of thing. So we really take a lot of care to make sure that we're taking the steps we need to keep ourselves safe, but also to really keep the vulnerable community that we serve safe.
Let me ask you particularly, about your background and kind of your training, and then I think you started kind of running through a few tips just for general, wet maintenance, right, and staying healthy. So where have you kind of developed your own skills? And how has that prepared you for what's happening now?
Well, so I'm Mexican indigenous, and so I grew up in that type of family lifestyle in the first place. Like my mom grew up with curanderos. She didn't grow up with doctors, and I grew up with energy healing and that kind of thing. And then in my 20s, I moved away from the energy work part into herbalism. And so I studied, with different curanderas and folk healers and, university classes, and just really with herbalists everywhere to get, because every herbalist has their own style, and there's different styles of herbalism, be it clinical herbalism or folk herbalism or, any of, Ayurvedic, herbalism or CM or different things like that. So studying a lot of different styles, and constantly studying. People tell me like, oh, how long does it take to, study to be an herbalist? Your entire life? I'm always studying. I'm always researching. I'm always like out there talking to the plants and experimenting with things. And it's like it's a constant learning of learning. But yeah, I've been really lucky to study with some really different great herbalists across the United States. So are there? So the one thing I really appreciate about that work is how it can, and I feel like we've gone through, and maybe this is, I don't know, you tell me what you think, kind of like these generational, kind of like gardening, right? Like we've taken a few steps away from our knowledge of just growing plants. And I feel like there's also like within kind of like Mexican-American culture, kind of like this generation step away from traditional healing practice. Because I remember growing up and just hearing other kids like joking about, putting the egg under the bed or doing this or like it was old school or quaint or, dated or something. But it feels like also a process of rediscovery, but so rooted in where we are. So not only is it the recovery and restoration or maybe like cultivation of traditional cultural and medicinal knowledge, but it's tying people to place, which I think is so important for a health of our planet and for our communities too. Absolutely. Like Heidi and I really like to say that it's not so much that in the work that we do that we are teaching people, but we're reminding them. That we're reminding them where our ancestors came from, what our ancestral traditions were. We're taking them back. We're empowering them. Like we both feel that nowadays people put their too much of the responsibility for their personal health on their care providers. And even with people that we work, we're not in charge of your health. You're in charge of your health. And so let us help you, guide you. And we really feel that that's really important for any healthcare provider that you work with, whether or herb, that you should be the one driving that car, and should be your guide. And it's really a lot about empowering people. No, you are in charge of your body and of your health and your ancestors, and let's remind you of what's already in your DNA, which that you already know. And people get into herbalism, it is like they just have, it's like their body has this genetic kind of memory, you know, it's like, I remember this, you know, my body remembers this ancestral medicine, and just, you know, for the most part, responds like really well to that. So yeah. You know, we've been looking at just in terms of, I mean, we started off thinking just in terms of sustenance, right? Marisol and myself, and oh wow, we moved into a home where an older woman a generation ago had planted all these fruit trees, and so we're the beneficiary of that foresight, you know, and that care. Nice. And we've done a lot of planting of our own and growing and benefit from that. But then we were looking around, and you know, there's like cactus and loquat and just different. Now loquat's not necessarily indigenous, but I feel like when we do cook like native plants, that we're doing medicine even though if we don't understand it. So is there like if you were to recommend for folks, like, okay, you're in charge of your health, here's 3 very simple things you can do. Maybe it's mental health, maybe it's physical, maybe it's body mind. But I wonder if we could talk just a couple tips, and then I'm want to know like about your own, like what's the bulk of your work right now. I know there's something going on with some lung formulas you're working with and that sort of thing. Okay. Well, like top 3 tips. Big tip, gargle with salt water twice a day. Like it seems like so silly or whatever, you know, and no, it's not going to kill the virus, but it'll help clear bacteria that's in your throat, and just it's really probably the number one easiest, simplest thing that anybody can do that just will truly make a difference, you know. So gargling with salt water. The other thing is just like, you know, again, it's simple, washing your hands. Like washing your hands is going to be way more effective than even using sanitizer, just like washing your hands. And then if the other thing that I would do is I would make myself a little simple daily tea that I would drink, and the tea would have cinnamon, ginger, citrus peel, and something like blueberries or blackberries. It could be the fruit itself. It could be it as a jam or a jelly. Okay. But doing those things right there, you know, would be very, very helpful. The tea will serve to help boost your immunities. Those particular herbs have had some great research in the TCM medicine of helping to keep the virus, this particular
Chinese
virus.
Medicine, traditional Chinese medicine?
Yeah, traditional Chinese medicine. To keep, there's certain herbs that are very helpful in keeping viruses from attaching to the ACE2 receptors, right? And so the ginger and the cinnamon, licorice root, these things are really helpful for that. That's why it's like, you know, it's everybody has like ginger and cinnamon, you know, in their house. They're easy things. Anise would be another good one to put in it for that lung health. So like if I was thinking in terms of just what is quick and easy and just about in anybody's house, certainly anybody's house in San Antonio, you know, you're going to have ginger, you're going to have cinnamon, you're probably going to have anise. You know, you might have some kind of citrus around, whether it's a lemon, a lime, and it's just a simple, you know, it's very evocative of ancestral medicine, but very delightful tasting, and just, you know, just really, really good medicine for the heart, for the lungs, for the immune system, for all of that. So those would be the big things that I would do: is gargle with salt water, wash your hands, and just make yourself a simple spiced tea. You know. Cool. Nothing fancy.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, it is so helpful when they're easy access items and very typical for a lot of folks, are easy to access. Now, one of the reasons I reached out to you when I did is, I mean, I definitely wanted to have the Herbolarios and the Yanawana Herbolarios on here, but also I've been reading on Facebook about this lung tonic, or I know you're out right now getting supplies. Can you describe just real quickly kind of what you're doing, and then maybe the next time we connect, we could be like at the clinic or kind of observe your process. And also maybe for folks, there's probably a lot of folks who are going to see this broadcast that don't know who the Herbolarios are, so maybe a quick introduction on that.
Okay. So we have our headquarters in San Antonio, Texas, Yanawana Herbolarios. We're a San Antonio organization, but we also have a branch in Navajo Nation. So we have 2 branches here in San Antonio, 1 in Navajo Nation. And pretty much the focus of our organization is bringing medicine and ancestral skills back to the people. So we do this through free clinical work. It doesn't cost to consult with us, and it doesn't cost to receive herbal medicine from us. And then we had also been doing this through free community education classes on different type of ancestral skills. But with the pandemic going on right now, obviously that's halted. We're hoping to move our classes to a virtual format. So that we can still bring access to that. Right now, we're kind of experimenting a little bit with Facebook Live doing that, but we think we're probably actually going to like record some videos. But so what we're doing right now with disaster response is we have a formula that we created. It's called Fortify, and it's an immune support formula. And so the thing is, with viruses, to give your body the best chance, you want to hardy up your immune system. So that's what this formula was designed to do. We designed to do it so that it didn't matter what kind of health condition you had or medication that you were on, that it would be safe for anybody to take. And so we're making like literally like, you know, tens of gallons of this a week. And then we're distributing that through people either put in a request to us directly, but then we also have partnerships like American Indians in Texas, Via Coronado, different of our partner organizations that we're working with to Night Market. We just did some distributions to them that we're working to, because they're also doing their own community distributions. So in partnering with them, it's, you know, we're able to get a lot more of the formulas out to people as quickly as possible, because then their volunteers are getting this on the ground.
We'll definitely put up as many, like whatever you want to forward in terms of access points or websites or phone numbers. We can put like an overlay on the screen and run that for folks. For sure. But I want to make sure we get to the work in the Navajo Nation. If you want to maybe speak to that, there may be something, you know, a donation site people can support that work through. Whatever you think is best.
So with Navajo Nation, what we have going on there is that our executive director, his passion project is working with the elders, and in particular working with the elders that are in the remote areas. So they don't have access to electricity, they don't have access to water, they certainly don't have easy access to food. So we have a project that's called the 100 Pail Project, and we're starting out with just 100 pails, but then we hope to move to 500 pails, 100 for each of the 5 districts, but they're needs pails. So there's going to be flats of water, and then in the buckets there's going to be native foods, because we're feel it's real important to include indigenous foods. So we're not only going to be doing the 100 buckets, but we're also the money that we're raising to do this, a good 40% of it is going back into indigenous owned businesses to support their work. So there'll be things in the bucket like native foods, native plant medicines, household needs, things like that.
I can hear now, and I suspected before, that through the Herbolarios, that there's just a lot there that people can learn from and begin to, like you said, take ownership of their health. I think these are times when people are very conscious of, but also very, these are times when people are going to be expressing a lot of anxiety or depression or feelings of powerlessness around these health questions. And so it could also, through training or from folks like yourself, be a point that there is this kind of broadening of knowledge and commitment that can like ripple through the communities that the more people I talk to, the more I hear the messages. We don't want to go back to where we were.
Absolutely,
we don't want to just recover, right? Right. And so I wonder if there's a message, like just kind of like a closing message that you would like to deliver to the community. And then I'll add information just in terms of like where they can find you, and just kind of anything you would want to deliver. Just it's your time.
Okay. Well, we're still here for the community. We haven't gone anywhere. The People's Clinic is still available to folks, even though it's no longer the mobile walk-in clinic like we had. People can still reach out to us through the YH response site, which I'll give you. If they're sick, and they need help, then we have like a 24-hour turnaround response time with them. If they're just wanting to continue work on chronic health issues so that their bodies are as strong as possible so they don't get sick, they can reach out to us. I mean, it's still free. We're just, doing it teleclinic style and then just meeting up with folks to get them the medicine that they need. So, pandemic or not, we're here for the city of San Antonio for however they need us. So people just, reach out to us. We're here for you.
All right. What have I got? Am I on the right? Anyway, thanks to anyone who's able to join us here, and we're going to be, blasting this out, and we'll have additional resources for folks. And I do want to say, can I? Offer up a thanks to folks. So we are on Patreon. If you go to our website, you'll see a link there. It's pretty prominent up at the top, deceleration.news. And for folks who are available or interested, want to support this work, basically what that goes towards, well, it goes to Money Soul's time and the ability to research and produce materials, print, long form, investigative, video, and it can supplement, our needs here with equipment wise. I had another day of the near breakdown, and probably will need to upgrade on this computer for the sake of what is it? RAM at minimum, so I can run 2 programs at once. So anyway, folks up on here: Moby, Kenny, Judith Norman, Judy, Carlos, and Ann, Sister Elizabeth, Angela Pardo, Angie, and Dillon, who I owe a phone call to. Thank you guys. If y'all want to have interests or needs, you can contact us at editor@deceleration.news. Go to the website. You can find us on Facebook and share, like, and comment. But yeah, send us a note and let us know what your needs are. And we're just hoping that everyone will continue to, as best as you're able to, care for yourselves, care for your families, and those who are near and dear, your neighbors, your communities. And this is a time that we can really invest in each other and think about, where things go from here. Wolfie's back. He picked the door again. Hey, baby. And I guess that's the end for now. But yeah, you can hold on to that. Yeah, appreciation, gratitude.